Let the record show that adequate notice of this meeting of the Mayor and Council of the Borough of Keyport being held Tuesday, October 17th, 2023, has been provided by the meeting notice, which has been sent to the Asbury Park Press and the Star Ledger, posted on the bulletin boards and filed with Borough Clerk as required by the Open Public Meetings Act.
Thank you. Will you do the roll call, please?
Councilmember Demas.
Present.
Councilmember Riley. Councilmember Vecchio. Here. Councilmember Pepperoni.
Here.
Councilmember McNamara.
Here.
Council President Davidson.
Here.
And Mayor Arania.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to ask everybody to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like everybody to please stand for a moment of silence for the horrific massacre that the Hamas did in Israel. Our thoughts are with the thousands that have been killed or injured, and to hope for the hostages to come home safe to their families. This was a true tragedy, and the cruelty that was laid upon the innocent children, women, and elderly are unthinkable. Thank you. Since we don't have a meeting before Veterans Day, we're going to read a proclamation for all veterans. And after we read them, I'd like to invite all the veterans up to take a picture with the proclamation. And then Michelle will give the proclamation framed for the American Legion. Whereas on November 11th each year, Veterans Day honors all of the brave military veterans who have served in the United States Armed Forces in times of peace and during the war. And whereas a temporary peace or armistice was signed at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month in 1918 as World War I hostilities ceased. And whereas in 1954, Armistice Day was changed to Veterans Day in order to honor veterans of all wars, including the World War II and the Korean War. Whereas the annual observance of Veterans Day on November 11th preserves the historical significance of the date and focuses on its most fundamental purpose, to commemorate and honor American veterans for their heroism, patriotism, and willingness to serve and sacrifice for the common good. Whereas veterans not only protect the nation's rights and freedoms, but they also provide services and aid to those in need. Whereas according to the National Center for Veterans Analysis and Statistics in the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, there are nearly 19.4 million United States veterans, of which more than 338,000 proud veterans call New Jersey home. Whereas the Borough of Keyport is home to the American Legion Raritan Post 23, which is a patriotic veterans organization focusing on service to veterans, service members, and communities. Whereas the Borough of Keyport was honored to be recognized in 2021 by Governor Philip Murphy in receiving the We Value Our Veterans Award. Now therefore I, Rose Piranio, the Mayor of the Borough of Keyport, do hereby proclaim November 11th, 2023 as Veterans Day. As the Mayor of the Borough of Keyport, I also call upon the citizens, government agencies, public and private institutions, businesses, and schools in Keyport to pay tribute to military veterans who have selflessly served in the United States Armed Forces. Thank you. I'd like to invite all the veterans to please come up.
Come on, Chief. Come on. The Chief's a veteran too,
Yes, she is.
and a member of Post 23 American Legion. So all these things.
And we're going to have it framed for you.
She won't. I'll hold on. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. start with committee reports. Councilmember Denmark.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. I'm gonna do something I normally don't do, but because of this moment, I think it's a good one to do. I'm gonna read the DPW stuff and everything the DPW has done, about 30 odd things for the past month, okay? Here we go. But this was sent to me by our new Public Works Superintendent, Mr. Kane, okay? So, the first thing is, there's an emergency storm drain repair at 251 Atlantic Street. It's complete, and the sidewalks are complete. The state of emergency preliminary damage reports will be sent out to the New Jersey OEM. That's the first thing, okay? Second thing, the DPW crews assisted with the removal of a deceased dolphin. Number 3, small storm drain repair is complete on May Street. Number 4, DPW crews are currently repairing numerous potholes in town. Number 5, Kearney Street, one sign is relocated. Number 6, light has been repaired in front of Borough Hall. Very minor things, I know, but they're so huge because everybody has something to say about them. They're very minor, but they're huge things that are done. Number 7, inmates have been painting various rooms in Borough Hall. As you can see, this room has been painted. Number 8, DPW removed the old furniture from the police station to the borough garage. Okay? Number 9, waterfront and beach debris cleanup from the 2 storms that we've had. So they've cleaned it up. Number 10, waiting on estimates for the railing repair. Of course, you know where the boat was, to the waterfront area from the boat strike, which I just mentioned, from the storm. Estimates are in to the insurance company. Very, very important. They're into the insurance company. Very, very important. Number 11, new signage has been installed for the confined space areas, the lost control report, as well as new confined space entry plan. Number 12, the mayor's plaque. All our ex-mayors from this town, names are on either side. As you walk out this back door, look to the right or left. They've been restated, they've been put up there. To the left, to the left. All the ex-mayor. Mayor Merle might be on there. Mayor Kenny might be on, who knows? Go out there and take a look at it. But it's been reinstated, it's been down. It's wonderful. It's wonderful that they've done that. It's wonderful. Okay?
Just so every,
Yep, go ahead, Mayor. Go ahead, Mayor.
just so everybody knows, whenever a mayor leaves the office, we actually have a plaque and has all of the mayors on there. So Mayor Kennedy is now added to the plaque, and we were waiting for probably 10 months for it to come back. Okay.
Okay. Number 13, the car show stage set up. Remember we had the car show, there's a stage down there? They helped set that up. 14, this is very important. All the garden club bags have been picked up. Okay? And thanks to the garden club for those nice flowers they put out there, and we already got one thing, we're gonna take care of them, we're gonna move so you can grab the railings, okay?
And all of the peppers have been removed,
Yes,
so everybody knows.
unbelievable, but that's the way it goes. Number 15, trash removal every day from the waterfront parks, that's what they've done, okay? Number 16, DPW regular maintenance in the senior building, as well as water removal from the library due to the heavy rainfall. These are all the things. I'm only halfway done, folks. I don't usually do this, but I'm gonna read everything the DPW has been doing.
And I think it's important that everybody sees, because so many things have gone not attended to.
Right.
But now with our new DPW supervisor, he's actually putting things into motion.
Number 17, patching roof areas in Borough Hall. Number 18, flag replacements after the storm. This is an important one as well. Number 19, senior building update. There was a sewer line collapse in the parking area of the senior building, which backed up into the building and revealed cracks to the old cast iron plumbing. Plumbing has been replaced and the sewer line was fixed. The building was then aired out and cleaned, and ready for the seniors to use the building again. Number 20, the DPW crews have been out collecting brush and leaves in all zones throughout the town, all zones. DPW crews cleaned up the dead end of Walnut for clogged drain lines. Go down and check it out, you'll see it. Very good. Number 22, the poles for the old playground at Cedar Street Park are removed. The poles from the old playground at Cedar Street Park have been removed. DPW crews, number 23, DPW crews have been helping the police department move out old broken furniture as well as moving filing cabinets into Borough Hall so all risks can be made repairs, so all the repairs can be made. That's what they've been doing, okay? Number 24, DPW met with roof engineer on Borough Hall to see if the leaks can be located and sealed. Number 25, historic sign was moved from the front of Lenore's. That's Old Hanson's Bakery, in case you don't know. Where I grew up in this town, 60 years. Okay, that's Old Hanson's Bakery. Okay? So it's been in front of Lenore's due to the rotted out pots. The rotted out pots.
The poles actually were rotted also.
Yep. Sign will be given back to the KBBC for restoration. Number 26, which I think this is some good stuff. We can all have jokes and laughs, okay? But I think this is good stuff. I think this is real good stuff. Crews are working on cleaning weeds from around Borough signage, so everything is visible, as well as weeds around Borough Hall. It's been neglected, folks. It's been neglected. Okay? Number 27, crews have been picking up metal and working the recycling yard. Some of us don't even know what a recycling yard is, but they've been doing it. Number 28, streetlights at First and Broad Street are being installed. They were neglected. But see, the thing about this is very important. You must make sure you have the insurance to back it up and everything that goes along with it, so the money's not coming out of our pocket. That's important. That's very, very important. See, it just goes right up you. Money's not coming out of your pocket. Okay? Number 29, meeting with Monmouth County to discuss paving senior center parking lot after the tank removal and sewer repair. So after they've already done it, they're talking about trying to repave that parking lot. Okay, that's about, where's that at? That's about 29 things that they've done since this gentleman's been hired, okay? Now, upcoming events that the DPW is getting ready for is the trunk or treat and the rescheduled 5K race, as well as attending mandatory safety training for the MEL GIF. That's unbelievable. Goes right over some people's heads, but it's unbelievable. As well as numerous other calls for service. So, as you know, lights go out, things happen, DPW's on call for that. And then sometimes they call different things, different communities come out ahead, but that's all taken care of for you people, okay? I just want to read that. And as far as the KBB is concerned, there's so much going on in this town, and our new president of the KBBC is our mayor. I'll let her talk about the KBBC. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Riley isn't here today, however, Councilmember Vecchio.
I just have a few notes that she sent in. One was for the Environmental Commission. This Saturday, oh, and I apologize to everybody, I've had laryngitis for like a week, so I sound like a frog. It's hard to make a list. Environmental Commission. This Saturday, October 21st, is a beach sweep at Cedar Street. It runs from 9 to 12:30. You can register ahead of time at Clean Ocean Section, or you can come and register when you get there. Fall planting will be done at the Cedar Street Beach as well. This will take place on Saturday, November 11th, starting at 9 a.m. And the rain date for that event is November 12th at 9 a.m. For first aid, the new rig is in production and should be ready by the end of the year. The first aid squad should be commended for their hard work acquiring this new asset that will benefit the residents of Keyport and the neighboring communities. So far this year, the first aid has had 1,034 runs.
Thank you. Yes, Councilmember Vecchio.
For the Harbor Commission, next up is the recommendations and feedback for the vendors. Those include the fishing boat, the hot dog concession stand, and the boathouse. With the help of our BA, we are looking to have all contracts done by the end of the year and ready to go for 2024 without any delays. Municipal Alliance, I was able to volunteer with Nikki Francis at the Municipal Alliance table during Red Raider Night. The event was greatly attended, and the coloring slack races that Municipal Alliance had, thanks to Nikki, were a hit with the kids. And the Municipal Alliance also had a table at the car show recently, which also was greatly attended. Again, please note that the Borough of Keyport's Municipal Alliance Committee was established to provide consultation programs, training, and resources to the Keyport community in the goal of preventing and reducing the abuse and misuse of alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs. And the Municipal Alliance is still looking for new members, so if anybody would like to be involved, please reach out via email to Nikki Francis at nicki.r.francis@gmail.com or call 732-670-0505. For the police department, their total calls for service for the month of September are 10,037, case files 42. House building premises checks 139, total motor vehicle stops 169, and summonses issued on stops 128. And the rest of the police report, the chief will cover in various reports.
Thank you. Councilmember Pepperoni.
Thank you. For recreation, Saturday, November 4th is our 5K. Pre-race pickup will be at Borough Hall from 2 to 7, November 3rd, that's Friday.
And that's the rain date.
Yep, that's the rain date, that's the makeup date. For construction, 31 West Front Street is down. They're making the necessary repairs for 33 West Front Street. Building A of Raritan Cove was issued its COs. 333 First Street has been issued their COs. Duncan has completed their renovations, and the first 4 units have sold at 333. The entire first building at Raritan Cove has sold. For treasurer's report for Board of Health, we've taken in $2,200. For Union Beach Registrar's report, we collected $154. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember McNamara.
Thank you. Finance, along with what Councilmember Vecchio mentioned about trying to get things done for year end, I believe there's a resolution on the agenda tonight allowing for RFPs for the 2024 professionals. I've also asked for some year-to-date information on all of the various legal bills, just to do a deep dive into the regularly bubbling up conversations about expenses in that category. Grants, there's 3 resolutions on the agenda tonight, so I'll wait for people to look at those. And then on the good grant news, keeps coming, the borough received an update from the CDBG county grant CME worked on for the Beach Park Pavilion, and we were awarded $167,000 for that project. And yet another update, the county allowed the borough to update the previously declined grant for Cedar Street, and we've been awarded an additional $100,000 there. NPP was a small group meeting this past week, and we did receive notice from one of our residents that she's no longer able to participate, so I don't know if that position will get refilled for the balance of the year or if that will just come up next year. There's a no-go on the T-Mobile grant, we'll apply again in '24, and the discussions about the ARP grant, which we recently updated you on, we received $262,000, so discussions will start in November as to how to proceed with Beach Park. And Mini Park I'm not going to go into because Mr. Stroud did do a little presentation at the last meeting. Cannabis, no updates really from the CRC or litigation. Delays continue on both. And there is a public hearing tonight, so that's all I'll say with that. Green Team was excited to once again have a table at the Red Raider night also. We made sure to share information about the beach sweep this weekend, which, just a reminder, it is rain or shine, and it is looking like it's going to rain. You are encouraged to register, although you don't need to. They do ask that you bring a bucket and work gloves. And on the November 11th date, that is actually a weeding of the dunes, and that does have a rain date. And then lastly, I guess I'm once again asking this governing body and administration to follow through on the promises everyone made to support our seniors. I've been asking for over 10 months to have work put into the pilot extension at Bethany Manor that was requested last year, in addition to the regular complaints that have been coming from those residents for the last year and a half. So, thank you. And that's it for me.
Thank you. Council President Davidson?
Thank you, Mayor. In regards to redevelopment, discussions are moving along as they have been. There's going to be an executive session tonight where we're going to discuss matters of redevelopment and pilots. So I don't have much more of an update than that. Our next planning board meeting is Thursday, October 26th at 7 p.m. in Chambers. That is all I have.
Okay, thank you. So for the mayor's update, KBVC, we've hired a new administrative assistant, Benny Machado, for 90 days until the end of the year. Sorry, guys. October 5th, we had an amazing turnout for the Cars and Blues show. Having it at the waterfront was beautiful. We had a huge turnout, and everyone enjoyed the day, the evening. So for having it at the waterfront was due to the mini park stage still wasn't ready. So that's the reason that we had it down there. But so that everybody knows, the reason that we have the KBVC is to support the businesses. So hopefully, even though everybody likes to have it at the waterfront, we still need to provide for the businesses so that they're coming in and out of the stores. Thank you, Jay Faltings and Melissa O'Connell, for the KBVC for organizing and putting the event together. And it wouldn't be Keyport without the volunteers helping. Donna Purcell, Jack Straub, John Merla did a great job. Wake the Dead Zombie Stroll had an amazing turnout throughout Keyport. Thank you for all the KBVC members and volunteers who were able to put this together, as well as our very own Barrow Zombie, Donna Purcell, who actually taught the children how to do the zombie stroll.
Did she recreate it?
You didn't see that, Kim. The evening ended with the Parlor and the Keyport Princess collaborating on a boat ghost tour. Our next event is Bewitched, 10/28, and it will be throughout the town, including vendors behind McDonough's, as well as the clam diggers performing on the stage at McDonough's outside. We will have the Witch Parade, a potion scramble, a spook house, witch walkthrough, slime bar, painting pumpkins, and lots more. So everybody should come out to that. It's a great event. October 1st, I attended the T Visa and U Visa along with Council members McNamara and Council President Davidson, as well as our Chief of Police. I will have Chief Torres speak a little bit about this, when she does her update. October 12th, I was invited to attend the Monmouth County Commissioners Workshop meeting to celebrate and receive the $100,000 grant funding from the Monmouth County Board of County Commissioners, as Councilwoman McNamara had stated. This grant is for a 2023 Monmouth County Municipal Open Space Grant, and it will be used for Cedar Street Park. It was my honor to take the day off to go down to receive this grant on behalf of the borough. October 14th, I participated and helped with the Knights of Columbus Ladies Auxiliary for the breast cancer basket auction. I attended along with our Assemblywoman Vicki Flynn, whereas a resolution was given to the ladies for all their hard work over the 12 years that they've been doing this event. The money they raised was given to Breast Intentions for helping out women and men that are in need for rent, paying bills, medicine or treatment as they're diagnosed and going through treatment. If they cannot pay their bills, Breast Intentions helps them along the way. I'd also like to thank the Garden Club for the beautiful display in front of Borough Hall. That's all I have. Okay. Before we open to the public, is there anything on the consent agenda that any of the governing body would like tabled forward for discussion?
I just have one question. Resolution 298, the shared service agreement. So I know that I'm assuming we do that every year. It looks like maybe it was just delayed for this year because it has a July start date.
Yes, it's because I tried to negotiate a higher number, but they did not have it in the budget this year.
And then the only other thing I have in that, when I read through it, they're just on the second page of the agreement. It just seems inconsistent, like throughout the entire document, the SROs and SLEO3s, whenever there's conversation, it always says that they are, under the control of the Keyport Police Department. Throughout the entire thing. However, in that paragraph D on that page, it says that the borough administrator, with the input from the chief and the district superintendent, shall have the sole discretion, power, and authority to hire, discharge, and discipline those SRO and SLO3s, and I was just, I didn't understand why there's that inconsistency in that paragraph.
Because I'm the appropriate authority for civil service.
I'm sorry?
I'm the appropriate authority for civil service. Discharge comes through my office.
Okay, so even though everywhere else in the document, it says that these folks report to the chief of police, well, to
That's,
the KPD.
on a day-to-day basis, they report to the chief of police. When it comes to personnel matters, for discharge or major disciplinary action, it goes through me.
Okay, seems odd, okay.
It's the law.
Yeah, it's a way to provide civilian oversight over issues like that, quite honestly. That's why you have appropriate authority established by law and the chief of police. That's why statute.
There's a full process.
Anybody else? Do we have a motion to open to the public for comments on the agenda only?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, anybody? Elmer, oh.
How's it going?
Can you
Michael
do your
Warren.
name and address?
Yep, Michael Warren, 81 Business Street. I had a question about 300, the lead service line grant. I just had two questions. One, is it still just north of 2,000 lines that need to be checked? And two, is there a cost estimate? There's nothing in here about how much the grant is for. Thanks.
This grant is from NJDEP and the EPA. It is a grant that does not have a dollar amount limit to it. It will provide the borough with any type of public assistance with reaching out to the residents, the businesses, locating the lines, telling people how to locate the lines, communications with the public, and right now we're thinking it's about 1,700 lines, but we're actually not sure yet. We have to. You guys will see that there'll be some information on the website soon, and there'll be a QR code, because we have to check on our side, and then residents are gonna have to check on their side as well.
So the LSL inventory that's online right now is not up to date?
It will, it's up to date, but it's not 100%, we're not 100% sure. We're actually having to go through every single construction folder
Sure.
to see if certain things were changed, because something might have been changed from the main to the curb,
Yeah.
and then maybe the resident has a different type of gooseneck line or something of the sort, and it's not only lead, it's galvanized.
Got it, and this grant's just for the town system, and none of it's for American Water, it serves the rest of the.
Well, it's our lines, we own
Right.
the lines, we're the utility that owns the lines.
Right.
Even though we might get our water from New Jersey American at certain times of the year. So what's happening is the DEP put the pressure, there's federal and there's state guidelines. There's a 10-year period that we have to replace all lead and galvanized lines. We're
Yeah.
already 3 years down, so, the clock is ticking. So we're gonna find this location program. Once we do that, we're gonna start applying for IBINC and different grants and multiple different funding sources, which also is, part of this grant. They actually pay for the professionals to apply for the grants and look for more grants for us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Elmer?
Sure. Albert J. Graham Jr., 22 St. Peter's Place. Good evening, Madam Mayor. Good evening, Borough Council, Madam Administrator, Police Chief. Good evening there. A couple of things. Let's see, just bear with me a second here. Can you all explain Resolution 2023-306?
This is going out for our request for professionals for 2024.
Okay. All right. And,
That's done every year.
Say again?
We do that every year.
You
Right.
have to authorize the business administrator to take steps to issue the RFQs out, put them out in the street. So that's the action they have to take as a council to authorize that action.
Okay,
I don't think it's been done,
okay.
so that's
And,
why it's probably.
Resolution 2023-300. Can you explain that?
That was what she just explained
Oh, I'm sorry.
to Michael about the lead lines.
It allows us to begin the application process to go for grants, for the IB, applications for loaning and grants that are available.
I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Donna?
Donna Purcell, 396 Maple Place. I just wanted to say, the Keyport Board of Health, with the assistance of the Monmouth County Health Department, will be hosting the annual free rabies clinic on Saturday, November 4th at the Public Works Garage, 120 Francis Street, from 10 to 12. All dogs must be leashed and cats must be in carriers. Any questions, call me at the office.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you.
John?
John Morello, 34 Broad Street. The resolution that the borough is going to pass tonight to support the Keyport Yacht Club regarding the pump out station, they're applying for a grant. In the resolution, this is just a letter of support from the borough going towards that application.
Yes.
Okay, this, did the Harbor Commission also? They did?
Well, did it go before the Harbor Commission? I don't believe it. You don't know if it did?
I think that would give it some push too. I really think you should, once the borough does that, maybe we ask the Harbor Commission to do a separate, letter of support. My question is this though, will that be for all boaters that enter our waters or just yacht club?
It does say for all voters,
It
you
does.
read it, yes.
Okay, that's good, that's very good, that's a good start, and I think it should be supported by everyone. The request for proposals, it just doesn't have any dates, like a starting date and an ending date. So,
That would be in the proposal itself, that'll be in the RFP itself. This just allows me, gives me the mechanism to actually write up the RFPs and advertise for them.
thank you.
Thank you. Mike? Back from Italy.
Michael Lane, 51 First Street, Keyport. And I can tell you that the weather in the Mediterranean for 2 weeks was perfect. 306, which is a request for professionals. What set of professionals are we going to cover? Attorney,
Everything,
engineer?
engineering, everybody that we
Okay.
usually do.
Okay. Because it wasn't listed in the, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, we have a motion to close to the public.
Motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve resolution R 2023-284 through R 2023-307?
Motion.
Second. Michelle, will you do the roll call, please?
Councilmember Demarest.
Yes.
Councilmember Vecchia.
Yes.
Councilmember Pepperoni.
Yes.
Councilmember McNamara.
Yes.
And Council President Davidson.
Yes. Thank you. We have a public hearing, adoption of ordinances, ordinance 2023-14. Michelle, will you read the ordinance by title?
This is an ordinance of the Borough of Keyport, County of Monmouth, New Jersey, amending the Keyport Borough Code to establish within Chapter 9 a chapter entitled Keyport Borough Community Garden.
Thank you. We have motion to open to the public. Second. All in favor? Aye. Do we have anybody?
Yes.
Dennis?
Dennis Steinhardt, 162 Broadway, Keyport. Mayor, council, Borough Administrator Humphrey, even though it says Victoria Flynn,
That's the administrative.
that's his name, Kim Humphrey. But anyway, last time I spoke here, I presented a proposal for a simple, straightforward ordinance that maintains the successful 8-season status quo of the community garden on the Borough of Keyport property located at Elizabeth Street, Church Street, also known as Block 84, Lot 18. The proposal I put forward did not place any additional burdens on any borough employees, nor did it increase the cost to borough taxpayers. I understand the proposal we put forth was not considered because we were deemed an outside entity. As a Keyport tax-paying resident for the past 37 years and having successfully co-managed the community garden with Bill Shadell after resolution number 109-16 was unanimously approved by councilpersons Sheridan, Chamberlain, Howe, Lamberson, Cooper, and Good, along with Mayor Almack. I take exception to the characterization of outside entity. Being a founding member of the Keyport Garden Club, I have always volunteered my time for several reasons. Civic pride and enhancement of Keyport's neighborhoods being at the top of the list. My co-manager and I both work as professionals in the agricultural field, and we have intimate knowledge with proper management of community gardens. Rather than considering our proposal, a different ordinance was put forward without any input from the managing committee and gardeners that have intimate knowledge of Keyport's community garden. The proposed ordinance as is places burdens on multiple borough employees and departments, as well as creating unnecessary monetary costs to the borough's taxpayers. Why does the current administration find it necessary to alter a very successful, cost-free community asset and create these additional burdens on the already overworked borough staff and overly taxed borough citizens? Please consider dropping the ordinance tonight and working with the volunteers to make this right for all Keyport citizens. I wish for my garden colleagues to present further reasons why your ordinance tonight needs to be reworked. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Dennis. Anybody else?
Ed?
Ed Carew, 64 Broadway. I also am a founding member of the Garden Club, and I have a couple of points and a couple of questions I have. Number one, it says that the borough's open space fund can be, what is the purpose of the borough's open space fund? This is where the funds that you collect are going to be put into. So I'd like to know what the purpose of it is. And does the Garden Club have access to any of those funds?
No, they don't, right? It only comes to the ballot.
So what's the purpose of the open?
Where are you looking on here?
9-2.
It's managed by the Keyport Garden Club, who shall enforce the rules and regulations established by and under the direction of the Borough Administrator. The Garden Club shall require gardeners to sign a use agreement to supplement the rules and regulations set forth in this chapter, provided that the Borough Administrator has approved the terms of the use of the agreement. Fees for the usage of the community garden shall be collected by the Borough and deposited into the Borough's Open Space Trust Fund.
Right. I was wondering what that fund was. What's the purpose of the fund?
Well, it's used for open space throughout the town, right?
Would the Garden Club have access to those funds?
You will not have access to it. If you would like to put a request in for the garden, if you have needs, you would come to my office. I would do a requisition and do it through the proper channels for the local public contracts law.
Okay, so it sounds just like it's a general fund for any open fund.
There are guidelines that you have to follow.
Okay. Because what I'm getting at is that if the Garden Club is going to manage this community garden, and they build the 4x8 structures, fence has to be replaced, hoses have to be purchased. So I was wondering where we would get the funds for that. I think the funds that they're collected now by the Garden Club are used.
Yeah, so I can sit with whoever is in charge of the community garden, and we can work it out. But usually what happen is that a DPW work order would be submitted, and we purchase through vendors that accept purchase orders and pay through a bills list.
When we started the Garden Club way back in the old days, we had a line item in the borough account where we put our funds, any funds we collected, we deposited into the account. And then when we wanted to we made the decision on what to do and wrote a purchase order.
Is that like the 80s, 90s maybe? Yeah.
2008.
Right?
2008 to be exact.
Yeah, so that's not, it's actually not permitted by the state to do that. So it has to fall within the correct dedication by writer from the state on the flexible charge account. So you can't just give an outside organization a borough line item. It has to fall within the appropriate area in the budget.
Well, I have my doubts about, managing an organization and then not being assured that we're going to be able to keep it up to our standards of what we want to do.
Yeah, we'll sit down. Yeah, we'll sit down. We'll work out an agreement.
And how have you been funding for the wood that's in there currently as well as the fence? Have you been funding, the garden club has been funding it on their own?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, just what I noticed.
Yeah, and part of that, I guess, could be reimbursed by the fees that are collected. You know.
Right.
And that, to me, makes sense, but if you don't want the garden club to collect the fees, then we should have access to those fees, and I would say I don't say unhindered, I mean, you want to review what we want it for and write the purchase order.
Right.
Okay. The fee of $45, the new fee, I don't know, when I think of a 4x8 space, and the cost of tomatoes, the cost of vegetables, I think the fee is getting real close to breaking even. You know, why would I want to have a garden and just go out and buy this stuff? It would be cheaper. And of course, for an outside member, not of the community, an outsider to come in and pay $70 fee, it's way over the top. So if you don't want them to come in, that's a good way to get them to not come in. But the $45 to me, I think is just a little unreasonable. In this day and age, you know, the $25 maybe could be increased. I would go to $30, my just personal recommendation. Point number 3, number 9, 7, I think the use of pesticides, I can't read it here. I'm just getting it all messed up. Number 9, 7, I think the use of pesticides, fungicides, and herbicides should be prohibited, period. Yeah, I don't really know what an organic fungicide is, but all fungicides kill fungus, and we're learning now that fungus is an integral part of plant growth, and sometimes it needs to be controlled. People use boric acid and things like that as organic, and you know, I think that in today's day and age, it's better not to use anything at all.
Well, it says they're prohibited in number 7.
Well, it says
Fertilizers,
non-organic.
pesticides.
It
use
says
of
non-organic, so we.
Pesticides, then it
And
says
then
fungicides, it's separate. Herbicides and fertilizers is prohibited.
I read that differently then.
Yeah.
Well, anyhow, I agree with that, but the use of organic fertilizers include non-dyed compost, well-rotted manure, bone meal, blood meal, compost tea, and something called comfrey tea. On fourth point, number 9.12, I think you should remove compost shall not be permitted in a community garden. I think that is utterly ridiculous, because compost is your main natural organic fertilizer. True, it's not the first year you put it down, it isn't really fertilizer, but the process that involves compost, it makes it into fertilizer. And, you know, just to have no compost doesn't make any sense. Dyed compost? Yeah, you know, that stuff they sell in Home Depot, black, red, I think that's obscene, and that should be prohibited. Point number 4, since the number 5 for me, and then I'll be sitting down. Since the KGC is responsible for the management and the upkeep of the community garden for the borough, I feel the borough should adopt a resolution to exempt the Keyport Garden Club from borough fees for building use and park use for KGC activities, such as garden walk, such as plant sales, meetings that we have when we have entertain people to give guest speakers, like we've used this room here. And for garden walk, we would use this room for the presentations that we have on both days, and the gazebo down in the waterfront. And then, of course, we normally would have an end-of-the-year covered dish party, and we would use one of the parks. And we didn't do that this year because it was I think a $250 fee. So I don't know. We are a volunteer nonprofit organization. If you want us to manage it, there seems to be some restrictions on the management that, for me, makes it a little uncomfortable. And if some of the things on this ordinance weren't changed, I would encourage the garden club not to participate at all, just get out of the community garden business. We didn't start in a community garden business, and our idea of what a community garden wasn't a real community garden. We used property, Ted Miller's house, and we built a garden back there, and we gave all the vegetables to the food bank. We called it a community garden, but in a sense, it wasn't a real community garden. Allowing people who live in apartments or don't have the proper growing facilities, that's the purpose of a community garden. To have them take their items out of the garden without having a compost bin to recycle it, they live in an apartment, where are they gonna bring it? They can't bring it back to their apartment. So those things, I think, need to be considered. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi, my name's Andrea Shadle, 62 Division. I've been a taxpayer since 2011, and I'm one of the founding members, committee members for the Elizabeth Street Community Garden that began in 2016. Good evening, Mayor and Town Council members. I wanted to address Section 9.5 under the Rules and Regulations, Part B, Number 5, about weeds and their removal. Thank you, Ed, for sort of like getting me set up for that. I'm referencing the horticultural practice of composting. Community gardening and composting go hand in hand. It appears that false claims have been made regarding our composting system at the Elizabeth Street Community Gardens. And because of this misinformation, our composting system was dismantled. The borough is now hit with the costs associated with waste removal. First off, there was a claim that our compost system was in violation with the DEP and that the borough was hit with a substantial fine. Upon investigation, Mr. Patel at the Division of Sustainable Waste Management, Bureau of Recycling and Hazardous Waste Management at the DEP stated that the composting materials generated at the community garden on the community garden property, which is owned by the borough, is exempt from the permit requirements described to Kim Toey by the borough administrator and the head of DPW. No permit is required. The only thing that needs to be done is to address the issues that the borough needs to complete the form that you were given. And as an FYI, there's no cost in submitting this exemption application. In addition, the form was given in good faith that it would be presented to the borough administrator, and we learned that it was not given to you. In completing the form, the borough should select exemption number 2 for materials that are generated, composted, and reused on the same site. It's important to note that the DEP encourages community gardens, and backyard gardeners to compost to help reduce waste in the landfills and reducing greenhouse gases. In fact, many cities have adopted citywide composting. New York City at the moment has just begun curbside composting for its residents. Secondly, a claim was made that there was a rat problem. The borough's property maintenance inspector investigated it and found no evidence. The community garden has been in operation for 8 growing seasons. I have been a part of its development from the beginning, and I have spent up to 4 hours at a time, many times in the garden by myself, and saw no activity. And I hate rats, and if there were rats there, you wouldn't have known about it. I have been in the garden at times, all times of the day, even at dusk, which is when most animals tend to come out. No activity. Most I've seen are birds, insects, and squirrels. I've talked to the neighbors over the years as well and have shared some of the produce I grow, and they've never mentioned the issue. Perhaps the person mistook a squirrel for a rat. At any rate, the claim was proven false. Because of these 2 false claims, our composting system was dismantled, and now the new ordinance is prohibiting our ability to compost. Lastly, we know the goals of any administration is to run efficiently, keep workload manageable for its staff, and reduce costs for the borough. By allowing us to continue this vital environmentally sound practice of composting, we're reducing the costs to the borough, since they would not have to pay the cost for the removal of the mountain of plant waste the garden generates each season. As a taxpayer and a voter, this seems like a no-brainer. In closing, according to the EPA, composting lowers greenhouse gases by improving carbon sequestration in the soil and by preventing methane emissions through aerobic decomposition. The benefits of composting are many, and many states are looking into diverting organic waste from entering their landfills by increasing commercial composting practices. We, the Keyport Garden Club and the Elizabeth Street Community Garden members, ask that we be allowed to continue composting. On-site composting allows a community garden to create soil amendments that contain fewer or no chemical compounds, which in turn allows the garden to create healthier food at a lower cost. A community garden also serves as an educational space, and I'm a retired special ed teacher. Hands-on educational stuff is vital for kids these days. Community garden serves as an educational space where the community learns how their food is grown, the science behind it, and the benefits of a healthy diet. If a community garden provides composting, it could be used as an additional tool to educate the public on the science and the environmental benefits of recycling and food waste reduction. Community gardens are usually on a tight budget. Composting produces free, all-organic fertilizer that make the plants grow strong, have more nutrients because of the rich soil. Using organic fertilizer also keeps community members and children away from toxic synthetic fertilizers. It appears that this new ordinance is reinventing the wheel that has been functioning well for the past 8 growing seasons. Every industry has its experts and experience. When an outside force with no experience comes in and makes changes with no understanding of that industry, it creates dysfunction. This new ordinance is doing just that. Currently, the community garden has a committee, and committed members of the community garden who work well together, are passionate about gardening and growing their own food, sharing what they grow, and overall being part of a community activity that's wonderful for their overall physical and mental health. Please consider dropping the ordinance tonight, and please take thoughtful consideration and adopt our proposal that was put forward. The current one has no input for those who are fully understanding ebb and flow of the community garden. Thank you for your time today.
Good evening. I don't think this is on. Is it on?
It's on.
Okay. Good evening. Claire Skeen, 33 St. Peter Place, Keyport, New Jersey. Taxpayer since 1986. A founding Keyport Garden Club member from 2007. A founding Elizabeth Street Community Garden Committee member since 2016. A master gardener since 2007. A master composter, no laughing, since 2008. Since our community garden was first formed in 2016, we have successfully operated under 2 previous administrations and have spent countless volunteer hours transforming an empty, barren lot into a thriving, organic community garden that has been enjoyed by residents of all ages. We have welcomed Girl Scout troops who grew vegetables to donate to the Keyport Ministerium Food Pantry, as well as an Eagle Scout candidate who built our much-needed garden shed and raised planter beds to accommodate gardeners with special physical needs. Our volunteer members have met with other Monmouth County community garden managers and attended county community garden symposiums at the Monmouth County Agricultural Building in Freehold. These efforts were in the interest of ensuring our community garden is comparable in pricing to other gardens and that we consistently employ the best organic gardening practices. Composting is an obvious and necessary component to achieve that goal. I urge you to please drop this ordinance and work with us so that we may continue to offer our community garden to the citizens of Keyport without unnecessary and costly burdens to the taxpayers. I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Dawn Diamond, 101 Green Grove Avenue, 4th year here. Came down from up north, and I love Keyport. So an apartment dweller. I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to access a community garden and grow my own vegetables here, like I used to do as a homeowner. So tonight I just wanted to provide an umbrella perspective of the public health look at community gardens. I'm adjunct faculty in the public health department at Montclair State University, so that's my platform, that's my background. There is a national organization called Healthy People 2030. I'm sure our health people in town are aware of that. For anyone who wants to look at it, healthypeople2030.gov. There's a heavy concentration right now on social determinants of health. We're really focusing on the ways we can support communities to do better for public health for people. And a couple of the determinants that are included in that are social and community context and neighborhood and built environment. And it was just established within the last year. I'm sure we've all heard that push for the 20-minute exercise per day. And within the last year, they named gardening as qualifying for that 20 minutes a day, along with walking, biking, swimming, etc. So gardening is in there. It suffices for that recommended daily physical activity. It's also fairly well documented now that any outdoor activity is good for mental health, which is a serious public health issue right now, extremely serious. So any outdoor activity very good for people's mental health. So gardening activities are showing evidence-based benefits now that for mental and physical health of individuals. There's also building evidence over the past decade that the social aspect of community gardens is beneficial for all the people that are involved, and of course we have that opportunity to donate food to the Keyport Ministerial Food Pantry, so I think that's really a great piece of what we're able to do there. The Healthy People 2030 determination of health, that's called Neighborhood and Built Environment, pushes for more open spaces and green spaces within each community. So generally speaking, the Healthy People 2030 program for individuals and communities pushes for more gardening and for more green spaces, and that any barriers to doing so should be minimized. So just backing up what the others said here tonight about allowing things to move forward the way we've been doing them, they have been successful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Bill Shadle, 62 Division Street. I am a member of the Keyport Garden Club. I am one of the committee members who manage the community garden. I've been involved since the beginning and a resident of Keyport since late 2004. First, I just want to tell you how I got involved and sort of why I got involved in this, why I decided to step up. My wife and I are members of the Keyport Garden Club at the time. Our house was on the Keyport Garden Walk at the time, and for a few years. And when we heard that the Mayor Olmec and the council unanimously approved a community garden for the Keyport Garden Club to manage, we wanted to get involved. I am a member of 2 other community gardens I have experience, one in New Jersey, in Fairhaven, and one in Milford, Connecticut, the town I lived in before I moved back to New Jersey. I'm a lifelong gardener and composter, literally since I was less than 10 years old. I've literally gardened, composted in 3 states in several towns. I have a bachelor's degree in landscape architecture, a master's degree in botany, so I wanted to offer my expertise as a volunteer to the community garden. And if I were in your situation, it's a new administration, I would do the same. I would check things out. I would want to make sure people are doing things on community property properly. That's a totally natural thing. I always assume people are probably screwing up. You're all, the council, mayor, you're residents, you're taxpayers, you're volunteers. We, on the community garden members and the community garden club, or the Keyport Garden Club, we are also residents, taxpayers, and volunteers. And we have the knowledge of how this community garden has been run for the past 8 seasons. We are not outside, quite the opposite. We are as inside as one can be on this issue. And while I would do the same as you and investigate, I would go to the experts, at least in part, to learn what's going on and then be able to adjust and make a new plan. So sort of learn from us. So I entreat you to do that. I just want to also now give you, since we have this history, of actually all the work that went in. This is all volunteer time, aside from our day jobs, getting this done. This is just to get it established, and then we have the regular day-to-day management of this every season. And it's not just May to October. There's stuff we do in the winter as well. We came with a blank site, as all of you probably well know. There's a big standpipe, it was removed, there's a blank site. We had assessed the site, the soil conditions, we sent the tests out to Rutgers, light exposure, the slopes of the land. We had 3 designs we all submitted, we just debated, we landed up with the design of what's seen there, you see there. We had to get the fence put up, so we shopped around for fence parts. The Community Garden Club donated money to get that going, because we had no money to start, because we had no membership yet. Dennis and his group donated their time to install that fence by hand. The gates and the arch, Mike Matteries donated those parts and his expertise and all his labor, he put that The paths and beds we had to get established. We had, our first year we got wood chips, we now get them from Barrett Tree donated regularly. That's our biggest work day of the year. Wood chips, we trucked it over to Aberdeen and got all the wood chips and had in trucks, and we had to do a whole big thing of trying to get them up onto the site by hand. That was a lot of work, first time. Water had to be turned on. DPW brought us water. And before we had water, the fire department came and gave us water. Tom Gall was involved in that. All the border plants. To some people, they may look like weeds, but they're actually intentionally planted to attract and keep beneficial insects and arthropods, which is great for gardening. Those plants were donated by members and 2 different businesses. The benches that are there, donated by members of Keyport. The shed, the Eagle Scout, and now a Marine, John Mellon Jr., built that shed, and complete with the living roof, which we planted. After he built it, he also completed 2 no-kneel beds, which allow people who have difficulty bending over to garden at standing height. He donated all that, and with his team, all the scouts. The Church Street entrance, it was difficult to walk up, so Apollo Plumbing graded it, put down gravel to get it a better slope. The compost bins were donated and built by Mike Tomasano, as you all probably know him, and Custer Booking did those. And then that was just getting started. And granted, some of those things came sort of later in time. It wasn't all done at the beginning. We had to do this slowly. We had to look for material. We had to plan these things out. Again, we're doing this all in our spare time. We had to recruit and manage members. So it was getting the word out, going different places, putting up signs, which we do every year to get those done. Setting up a website, setting up a forum. We have rules and regulations, which we have modified over the years as we've learned how to manage the site. And that's just getting set up. Again, there's hundreds of hours that go into this every season. In the past 8 seasons, I estimate between 100 and 200 residents have been involved in this, considering the gardeners, all the people who have donated their time and labor to this. So it's really a lot. This is a lot. It's not just 30 plots and 30 people. It's a whole bunch of others that have been involved with it. So it means a lot to the community. It's a visual attraction to the community. And it's not just regular gardens, or old people like me essentially, but we had Girl Scouts in there many times, their parents and the kids, and doing lessons, and all that, very active, as well as churches who brought the food to the food pantry. So this is just, I wanted to show you and give you an idea of what this has been to the community for the past 8 years, because it's natural, you would not know this without being involved. So this is what we know, and I wanted to share that information. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hey there, Michael Warren, 81 Division Street. Appreciate everybody else speaking. It's really interesting more in the history of the site. I just wanted to express 2 concerns that I had about the ordinance. One was just to reiterate the points made about composting. Just to really hammer it home, it's something like 1/3 of food produced in this country just gets thrown out to rot. So composting has been really encouraged widely for decades now. If the borough's not going to encourage people to compost in the community garden, where are we going to encourage people to compost? And then, more importantly than that, I have concerns about practically doubling the membership fees. I say this as somebody who's not a member yet, but was really looking forward to becoming a member in the spring, in January, when applications open. I'm worried. I guess just as a point of context, I was looking it up. The median income of household income in town is like $65,000. I moved here from Bloomfield, where the median household income was about $90,000, and the community garden fees there are $50. So we're kind of saying that we're going to charge people in town the same as a wealthier place for a community garden, and I worry about access issues to folks who maybe live on low income or below poverty level, or folks on fixed incomes who might want to participate in a community garden. So I did want to express concern about that fee, and I wasn't here when this ordinance was developed, but if anybody on council could give me some background as to how that $45 was come up with, I'd really appreciate it.
So how it was developed is, I actually provided, I looked at a bunch of different ordinances from all different towns. I might have looked at Bloomfield, quite honestly, that you mentioned it, to develop this one. And the price, I put in the cost. This was
nowhere near the highest, there were more that were much higher. And it's up to the council to decide from a policy perspective whether or not that's the right cost.
Sure.
And as soon as things get up and running, if there needs to be adjustments, there can be adjustment. The bottom line of what we're trying to do today with this ordinance, the most important thing is to formalize the fact that there's property presently that is owned by the borough that doesn't have any use agreements associated with that. From a legal perspective, that gives me anxiety. So what we are just doing here is like formalizing the arrangement that we need to make so that they can operate a community garden. It's appropriate in a legal fashion, that the garden club do so moving forward. There'll be a use agreement put together which will formalize more of the understandings and that dialogue that will occur. But this step tonight is very crucial because I've heard a number of, a few of your founding members here. So from that moment till today, that plot has been used in an illegal fashion. Not like we're doing anything that she's left. She doesn't want me here to say that. But basically, you can't just go on someone's property and use it without some type of formal arrangement. That's all we're doing tonight is to put that together. This is, again, unlike, this is not like any other ordinance, any other towns that are doing it. It was intended, again, to formalize it. If we're going forward and during that dialogue that there's some other feedback that comes back, maybe we should change it, like, if no one shows up and wants to use it because the rate's too high, council can change it. There's ways to do it. This is just to get it started. And I think it's unfair to say Bloomfield's any different than Keyport, but that's okay. I know the median outcome, something they say, because that was one of the ones I looked at. But there's a lot of other ones. There's towns that have more than that. So I think it was a number that was struck to kind of get things started.
But I guess I just want to be clear on that pipeline. Are you saying that you yourself put together this $45 and then there was no discussion at the first reading?
There was discussion. So what this council does now, it's twice a month. Once a month they have a workshop meeting where they discuss these issues. And so the ordinance is presented. I'm not the policy maker. I'm pretty much the drafter. Anxiety over the fact we have property out there without use agreements, yes. But after that, if I start drafting it, I start feeling a little bit better. And it's up to the council members to decide and give me input as to what they want to change, what works as work. They can ask me from a legal perspective. So really speaking, an email goes out from me to the council. I look for feedback. They come to a workshop meeting, they're workshopping these ordinances and resolutions. Then we have a meeting, and then here in a situation with ordinance, it's introduced. There's discussion at that meeting. If there's any changes.
Right, that's the question I'm asking, is if there was discussion about the price point.
So this has been discussed, we're at meeting 3 or 4 on this discussion in a public setting. So we're at the point of passing it, because this is a second reading, right?
Yes.
Yeah, second reading. So that's why there's a public hearing tonight. So this has been put up and discussed at public meetings multiple times. So we're at the final stage. We're gonna put it on the books. Michelle's gonna put in a code book that says, we now legally have a community garden in which we've designated one group who's gonna be in charge of it and has the right to execute a use agreement with the town to operate on that. My anxiety levels will go down, we'll do a use agreement, and then going forward, if there's changes that being made, if no one is, using this property because it's too expensive, and there needs to be a change, we can amend it. But tonight, it's very crucial that we bless this property with an ordinance so that it's being operated in a way that's consistent with the law. Make sense, right?
I understand all that. My question was just about the price. Thank you.
Thank you.
Also, if I can also bring out the fact that this helps us properly insure the location as well.
Yeah, this will also be sent out when we are seeking insurance coverage. This will be one of the properties identified, and for us, our insurance broker would love to have a copy of the ordinance to go along with it.
Hi, Jen Henning, 102 Main Street, Keyport. Taxpayer since 1985. So, I am not a gardener, although I admire the expertise I've heard tonight. My concern here is that it sounds like that there was no input from, am I correct, from the garden club in, the expertise is here. I mean, we have somebody from public health, we have somebody that can speak eloquently about composting, and it sounds somewhere along the line that, what was the genesis of this? Why did we decide we needed to
Because
come
we
in
never had
and
a
there
lease
could not be
before.
composting? What happened?
Compost
The
and
rats and all?
Jen, compost, we actually had a meeting with the DEP. They came out and said no borough property shall have compost on it, which is why it was removed from the library as well as from the community garden. We actually had a meeting with her in our office, I think it was April.
Were there complaints?
No,
But where did the
They
rats?
drove around.
Where,
yeah,
where did the idea that there were rats come?
I don't know, that didn't come from me, so I don't know where that came from.
It was, I don't know if it was an email or a phone call that our
This
office received.
does seem to me like it was a very simple, it ain't really broke, and it should have been outreach to the people that have been running a really successful enterprise. And the Garden Club is the most important civic group, in my opinion, in the town, in terms of what they do to enhance the quality of life here. In a lot of ways, by growing food, teaching people how to grow food, providing food for food pantries, teaching kids, myriad of reasons. The fact that they were not a part of the thought process to this ordinance, that there was not an outreach to them, concerns me greatly. And the idea that we can, if we do this and it doesn't work out because it's too expensive, we can come back a year. You lose a year. You lose people that are gonna come in. We've all seen how this happens. You have momentum, and then you lose momentum because of something like this. I am really, really.
Jen, one second.
What?
Didn't we, Lori, you actually received a letter from, Dennis
From Dennis
Correct.
McNamara, and I forwarded that over to
Correct.
Kim.
So we did receive that from them.
He reached out to you, I'm saying the outreach from the town to help us do this, if there were concerns, help us do this better. You're the experts. You guys have provided no expertise and really no reason that you should scuttle this, in my opinion. That's all I have to say here, is that it really, they are running a successful enterprise, period. Is there anybody here that thinks they aren't? Anybody?
But it's that it was illegal, right?
Well, the problem
Okay,
is,
I'm
the
not-
problem is
Absolutely, I'm
that,
saying,
so the problem is that we weren't doing the right thing. You have to create within the ordinance
sure.
the mechanism that an entity can use borough property. That was never done. I don't believe that there were permits taken out for building on borough property. There's different things that have to be done
That's on
correctly.
you guys, that's not on
But
them.
that now allows us and brings it back to us
Right.
because there was no formal,
Brings me back
no
to-
formality.
Absolutely.
So
Guys,
that's
come
where
on
you
and
have,
let's work
now,
this out.
this is where you have to have an ordinance to set in place a guidelines and regulations. We're not telling you how to grow tomatoes, how many tomatoes to grow, but it's the mechanism on
This is
how to
not
take care of the
my
process.
area of expertise. If you were to say do something on healthcare, reach out to me.
I don't think I'm understanding. We're not saying how to grow a garden.
We're saying we need to put
And we're going
a
by
place which
a
is.
I think
where
we all
others
know what
can.
I'm talking about. There was, these guys were not brought into the process.
Well, we've had several meetings.
Everybody feels a little blindsided
Yes,
here.
this is our fourth meeting.
I hope that you'll
Right, we've had
table
several,
this.
we've had
Bring-
several public meetings. Dennis came and a few other people, and that was it. Now tonight, when we're adopting the ordinance, everybody came.
You are adopting the ordinance?
Well, I'm saying, if it gets, that's the reason that it's on the agenda tonight, to move
I
forward.
hope you table it. I hope you reach out to these fine people and bring them into the process. They brought their blood, sweat, and tears in. They deserve to be part of the process. Thanks.
Thank you. Dennis?
Dennis Dennis Fotopoulos, 77A Beer Street. I get that we need an ordinance. I sat up there, I understand that. I think part of the issue that the people here have is that even though we say, you all say that they had their chance to speak, there was never a good faith dialogue, which they deserve. And I just want to say one thing. I appreciate your input, Mayor. I appreciate the comments that Councilwoman Vecchio has said. With all due respect, Councilor Flynn, I'm not interested as a citizen and a taxpayer of Keyport for almost 30 years in your opinion about this particular thing and whether or not it needs to be adopted. I think it's important that you remain impartial, not just for the benefit of the council, but for the benefit of the people that are paying for your salary.
Try to. I mean, legally speaking, this has to be
Legally
done.
speaking, you're right. We need to have an ordinance. It's the content of the ordinance, right?
Well, the content
Wait a
in
minute,
general-
I'd rather hear from the council at the
No, I'm
moment.
gonna tell you legally speaking, because you wanted, no.
It's
the
okay,
issue-
you can
The
go.
opinion that was objected to, I think mostly, besides the price, which I made very clear, I did not offer my opinion on, because my
No,
opinion
it's-
doesn't matter.
Okay.
But the opinion that I think maybe some people are objecting to, and I get it, because they're avid gardeners, they love composting, and I get it, and I understand the value of it. However, we've been talked to by the DEP that said, you cannot have composting on this community garden. So this ordinance, so that's not my opinion.
Okay.
That's the direction given to me from my client to put it in here, based on the opinion and the direction by the DEP. So that's
I'm
all I
talking
wanted
about
to
your
do.
opinion tonight.
About-
Let's
Those are the only
just
two
about
issues.
how the ordinance has to get passed, and let's just back up a little bit. Because if we granted that an ordinance needed to get passed, Administrator Humphrey, if we granted that, does it have to get passed as is? Can we actually hold off on this ordinance, engage with the garden club, and get their input and come to a meeting of the minds rather than actually dictate and risk losing not just a year or not just the time we may have while everybody's trying to adjust to this, but quite frankly, losing volunteers. This is supposed to be, all of us are supposed to want volunteers to be working with each other. And if you're not going to work with the volunteers by inviting their input, which I think is justified for all the work that they've done over the years, what does that say about the commitment to the volunteers of the town? So, there's a couple of things that I would recommend. First, I have a question about the use of public property as a whole. Is it an ordinance that needs to be established do we need to establish an ordinance that specifically says this particular plot of land we need to have a contract for this particular plot of land? Or can we apply the code that is existing in all use of public property and then simply come up with a binding contract? And if the garden club, do you understand what I mean? I remember doing this. With other parks and everything. So what is it? What would be? Is that something that can be done? Mary, is it okay if I'm sorry.
Well, you did already, but go ahead, Kevin.
So, the garden club is, and no disrespect, when I say an outside organization, I mean within the chart and chain of command of the borough.
Mhm.
I'm not saying that they're outsiders by any means, but it's outside of my jurisdiction. I don't have any say for the garden club. It could be, you can change your name, you guys can break up into two organizations. What has to happen is regulation in the books for the borough that says this can be done and this is allowed. That's not by a resolution, it's by an ordinance.
Okay, so that's all it needs to say, is that this can be done and this can be allowed.
A use agreement.
There should be the guidelines to give me the mechanism to follow those laws that the council wants. There is a lease agreement that will be drawn up, which we can address certain other items, but it's best to do it by ordinance. And that was up to the council in a workshop meeting. This was workshop, this is like our
Not
fourth or
even-
fifth meeting.
It
I
wasn't
didn't get
even
the
just
letter
workshop.
from the garden club personally.
Say that again?
I didn't get the letter. It wasn't communicated with me, the letter, up until after the introduction of the introduction.
It was actually
of
not
ordinance.
shared with anyone.
Yeah,
until-
so I didn't get that till everything was already drawn up. The attorney had already spent time on it, it was already workshop. So it wasn't that you were excluding anyone, and I'm not sure what the problem within the ordinance is that makes it so difficult. Whether it's the price, well, the price we use by going to other towns and looking at it, and also the borough resources. And we have to insure the property. And we are required to do upkeep for that property as well. It is borough property. So that's where the price comes into play. And we did say, you know what, if we in a year say, you know what, it can be lessened, then it should be lessened. But right now, it actually falls on the taxpayer if it's costing the borough more money.
And it's documented how much money it has cost the borough over the last 2-3 years?
I can't say that they did daily report sheets
No,
on
not
it.
talking about any-
Yeah, no, what we
I'm
did
not
was we said,
financial.
okay, this laborer, this, you know, if this equipment operator, they get paid this amount, they add in the fringe, like that type of, yeah. That's
Right,
how we came up
and
with
so
the cost number.
there's actually there's activity reports like Councilman Demarest read this morning about what they did with the Lizard
There
Street Garden?
should be, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Who pays the water over there?
So we can, right, so, okay. Councilman Pepperoni, I understand your point there, you know what I mean? But the garden club, right, brings an enormous amount of people into the town at the garden walk. What we're doing now is sure, you wanna charge them for water, charge them for the water, right, for the use of the water. Come up with a bill and charge them for the, I have no idea why you would need to do that when.
But I don't think he did, he was just
I just
asking
asked
if they did.
Well, the borough pays for it, but it would be, do we have a way of tracking how much water they use? I'm
It's
willing
probably
to bet.
metered, I would hope, right? Is that metered?
I have no idea. I would
Okay.
imagine that it is. I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
know.
so,
It's not been documented. We've had a lot of parks over the last few years for various clients where we're putting in meters.
Yeah.
So that they know.
right, we're
On the
kind of near
books.
enough here.
Yeah.
So what I would ask, and I know that it's not favorable, it's not the thing that the council wants to do. We've all been in this position where we've had to take a step back, reconsider an ordinance on the second reading, okay? Because of the public input, and Mary, this is when, I know we had workshop meetings, but this is
We
when.
also discussed it, we got the ordinance that they suggested, we got the ordinance Vicky put in, we were able to make comments on that too. It's not like I feel like a lot of people think this is the first time we're hearing it. It's not,
No,
it's not the second.
it's a second, it's a second.
It's
But-
not the second.
Well, it's the second
This
time
is
we're
the
seeing
third
it
or
as
fourth
written.
time.
It's the second time we're seeing it as written, right?
Yes, but it was also part of the workshop.
In
And
an
there was-
imperial manner, it was
The Garden
discussed,
Club had
right?
to be aware of it if we were presented with an ordinance from them.
We're here now.
But I think that the issue was as well as, we wanted to have this up and running for January.
Say that again?
We wanted to have this ordinance in place for January, that way we
Right.
can move forward with having the garden, like, this year, we didn't even properly have it
So,
set up.
okay, so you've heard the input, that's okay, we're going in a circle here. You've heard the input from the garden club, you've heard some of the professionals in the garden club explain some of the things that need to be addressed in their opinion in the ordinance. If you want to vote on it tonight, that's your prerogative, but, I think there's enough recommendation here, at least to have a dialogue and come to a good faith meeting of the minds between the two, between a volunteer organization in town and the council that serves the town. Most of us are taxpayers here.
Just
So, a quick question. Ed, was there, or is there an exception to the rule for composting specifically for community gardens? Was that looked at with the DEP for specifically that area? And is there a difference between a mound of compost, or is there a difference between a mound and having these bins that produce, you put everything in it, it's contained, it produces compost tea at the bottom once it's elevated, and it's all contained, and it's not a hazard. So have there been any of those options discussed with the DEP if they are allowed for the purpose of a community garden?
We did speak about the community garden as well as the compost that was on the library. As they rode around, they did see the two properties, and they did tell us that they're not allowed to have any compost on any borough property. And they did see the community garden, and they did also see the library.
So the library, I understand, it's a library.
Yeah, but they went to both of them.
So, and nobody.
And we could always revisit it in the
Right.
future. We just wanted to become compliant. We have so many DEP issues and violations. She came to the borough building, sat down and had a meeting with us, had multiple violations. It was gonna cost thousands of dollars, and we just wanted to be compliant.
Hi, Bill Shadle again, 62 Business Street. Just a couple things I wanted to address. Let's look about, to your question about compost. First of all, we have asked for that violation. There seems to be no record of it.
They didn't give a violation for that. We complied with it because she came here to have a meeting with myself, Kim, and I believe there were two other people there in the meeting, I can't remember who was there. But she came out to tell us that we cannot have any compost on any borough property, bottom line. She said with all the violations that we had in the past, that we were never addressed, they never addressed them. She was actually going to give us fines for everything, including that, but she did not give us that because we became compliant with it.
So it's related to other violations.
Many other violations.
Because there's very clear
There's many
exemptions. The rules for permits are for compost the size of this room. It's not what we're talking about here. So apparently this seems to be an exception.
It was a very
because of
big
other
issue.
violations, essentially we're paying the price for it.
Correct.
Okay, it'd be nice to get resolved so we can get back to normal. Number two.
Which is what we're doing now, which
Okay.
hasn't been done.
Well, no, I mean back to normal as operating a community garden like it should be run. The meeting where you said Dennis spoke was one of the times we talked about this. There was no detail that was here like this. So this is the first time, I don't know when this document came out with all these details, but the first time we all learned of it was last week. And I just want to point out, if you're saying you had all these meetings and now it's just like the final meeting, the fact that so many people here haven't heard that mean communications, there's a communication problem here, so let's just realize we're not trying to be a pain. We heard the problem, we're trying to address it as soon as we learned of it, and that's why we reviewed the ordinance. The other is, I think codifying makes a whole lot of sense. And to the borough attorney's comment, we didn't walk on somebody else's property and use it. We were told to do it, so we did what we were told, and we did it responsibly for 8 seasons. Codifying it sounds great, but it's so prescriptive, and it's so prescriptive, counter to what we've learned. No one came to us, and we should have been come to. $45 is exorbitant. Per square foot, it is far more than anyone we could find. Where it's only 4 by 8 plots. This is nothing. It's the size of this table, a little bit bigger. It's nothing. This is, $25 is plenty. And we put it in a dedicated fund that goes for our repairs, our needs, our supplies, our tools, all those things. It's now concerning. I don't see why someone would join for $45 not to know that when they need a nozzle, that you have to go through a purchase order. I mean, these things are kind of ridiculous. Give yourself the freedom to get us off your backs and say, we'll codify the big pieces, but leave the prescriptive stuff out. I don't see why you can't do that.
In regards to the fees, Andrea Shadle, 62 Division. In regards to the fees, what my husband just said, it is based on per square feet. Ours is 4 by 8. Little Silver is 4 by 30, $50. Marlboro is 4 by 20, $40. Homedale, 4 by 8, $20. I'm pretty sure they have a much higher median salary per household there. Eatontown, 4 by 20, $25. 4 by 10 plot, $15. Freehold, 4 by 20, $25. I just looked it up on my phone. So whoever did the research for that, As a retired person, like, it's expensive. And I grow my own veggies so that I can cut costs, yes.
Can we just make it like $10 free, just to help move this along? 'Cause
No,
it's
the
not-
25 is fine. It helps to, like, we've been using the money to purchase things we've needed.
So does it, how much?
They went up, it's like $40-something.
So okay, if we go back to
You could
25.
table this ordinance if you wanted to. Wait. You could table it and you can make a change. That's, if that's what you want, if that's your prerogative and the rest of the governing body. Tonight it's open for a adoption, so you could say table it, if you say no, it'll die.
Well,
And then it has to start all over
Could
again.
we vote on this with the intention of some minor changes to help out? Oh, we said it'll be on the books.
Do you want,
I don't know. So,
I don't know, does anyone?
I mean, we're gonna be here for 4 hours.
I know.
No, I think you should have a closed session discussion at another date with the committee. The experts that, we have master gardeners on the committee. We have, my husband is a botanist and a landscape architect. I mean, we have people that know their stuff. And decisions are being made about stuff that you guys don't even know. Compost tea doesn't occur in a compost. You take it and you mix it with water. So you don't know what you're talking about. You need to talk to people that know what they're talking about. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but it's frustrating when people are making decisions and they don't know what they're talking about. I understand there's legalities that you have to follow. I get that part. But we've been responsible. There's people in this room that just moved to Keyport recently, and they want to grow their own food, and they can't because they live in condos, and they want, they're on fixed incomes.
No, you could also adopt this
No,
ordinance.
fixed incomes. I make $16 an hour working in a restaurant.
Adopt it or adopt this or you table.
And in regards to the compost, you need to get the DEP guy down here, because he said there's no reason why we can do it. So there's some kind of misinformation that's going around, or either you don't understand what they were talking
No,
about.
actually, don't say that we didn't understand.
Okay,
We
maybe.
had a meeting with them.
Okay, but then you need to get this guy down, Patel, because according to everything, there's, like, at the state level, composting is not a problem, and we're exempt from fees, and we're exempt from permits for composting in community gardens. I just looked up a whole bunch of stuff before I
But it
came.
also is said that the compost that you had did not qualify as compost.
It was.
It was not. It was not. Board of Health said it was not. The DEP said it was not. They said it was more debris.
It was
than
more garbage
compost.
than it was
It's not
average.
garbage, it was the plant, that's what compost is. I have a compost in my backyard. It's the plant, it's plant debris that, from the garden that got put in there to break down into to what we call black gold, to put back into the soil. Why? Because soil is so depleted of nutrients that you put that compost on it so that it feeds your food. So your food is way the hell healthier than what you're getting in the supermarket. That's what composting is.
Sorry, I know you're tired, but this is important.
It's
We
not
have
that data.
data.
I'm clear to everybody.
33, I still live at 33 St. Peter. We have data that contradicts what you were told by whatever DEP representative came to the borough. That in and of itself should be a huge red flag for our borough to do our due diligence and make sure we get it right. Andrea cited a conversation, an email from Mr. Patel at the DEP stating exactly what we had to do. It's done all the time. When we did our comparisons with other community gardens in Monmouth County, they compost. I'm looking at right now something from the state of New Jersey, 220th legislature, dated October 3rd, 2022, which allows composting, on-site composting systems on publicly and privately held lands, waiving Solid Waste Management Act paperwork, blah, blah, blah. I think you were given bad information. You're providing additional information. If Lauren's looking into, invite Mr. Patel down here. I'm sure he'd love to come to clear things up for us. It's done throughout the county. There's not a reason in the world why we can't be doing it here in Keyport. So please, due diligence, let's really research this and make informed, intelligent decisions. Thank you.
John, South 96 Maple Place, I'm in full, I totally agree, the community garden is a wonderful thing. I don't understand the whole DEP thing because they're pushing composting. So, what Ron was saying earlier, is there some way you can pass, you know, the legality part of having to, you know, whatever it is you have to do, leaving out the fee and put that in later, leave out the composting for now, and just get all that other stuff in place? Is there any mechanism to pass that ordinance tonight, so we're legally doing the right thing, but at the same time do your amendments right now?
Not if it's a substantial change.
Well, can you pull those two items? At least, because it sounds to me like that's the biggest issue, is the fee and the composting. Can you pull those two items? Is that too substantial? I don't know.
Let the attorney
What I think
decide.
we should do, and I'm gonna speak on behalf of the council,
Because it's not making any
is
sense.
strike the fee for
Right.
now. We'll add the fee later.
Right.
Leave the compost until we have a meeting, a second meeting.
There you go.
With Mr. Patel and also the woman that we actually spoke with, and have them both down here so that we could decide exactly what one is saying versus the other. So,
Public meeting.
Mayor, I'm sorry, did you?
no,
So, the points that I think are, that we're all talking about, and I know I've been speaking of these when we have talked about this as well, is the fees, the composting, and the removal of the waste. So being the fees that whatever we're gonna charge, if whatever that comes out to be in the future, could we have an agreement where the waste stays there? DPW picks up the leaves from everybody. They've been going around whether they're supposed to be picking up from the houses or we're supposed to be delivering to the recycling place as a homeowner. But if they leave their waste there, a certain amount of bags per week to be manageable, is there a way that could be worked in so that we don't have to worry about people that live in apartments taking waste back to sit outside of their buildings that they live in or their rental
That might be
units?
substantial. I think that's a substantial change, so you have to pay their rebate.
So removal of waste, a line item, changing that would be a substantial change.
I would-
The fees are not a substantial change to remove that?
we could strike the fees at this time.
And then, is there a
No,
language?
you could strike
You can lower
those
it.
subject to putting them in a user
Correct.
agreement.
Yeah.
Because I really, every year this provides for you to enter into a user agreement. So that fee can be struck in that agreement.
And then add that into the user agreement, but leave the compost until we have the actual conversation. We can adopt the ordinance tonight, and then what we can do is change that once we have the meeting for the compost.
And if you have to change that part, then you
And
can
then
also
at
change
that
the
time-
picking up the debris when you change that.
Yeah, because then that would be introducing a change of. Okay?
I guess
Excuse me, I really want to get on the
I
record
don't-
at some point.
I know, but are you able to speak on this because your husband is the president of the garden club?
He's not the president of the garden club.
He's not?
No.
Okay, so Vicky, do you wanna, is that? Okay.
What do you want? I
just wanted to make sure so we're covered for you.
I just have a synopsis. First off, I think that anybody saying that the space has been created, that it's illegal, is wrong. The space was created by resolution in 2016. It is mentioned in the master plan, 2017. It is in our open space inventory done in 2018. There are a couple of other things that were wrong that were stated, and I just want, for the record, want them corrected. The garden club had zero access to a draft or the ordinance until it was introduced 2 weeks ago. Meanwhile, the garden club forwarded a month ago a draft ordinance because they kept hearing from everybody that, oh, we're too busy, it's gonna be this, it's gonna be that. They created something, nobody spoke to them. The current arrangement has been working since 2016, and I don't understand why this council would choose to charge our taxpayers almost double for these plots, knowing that the increase is 100% resulting from adding an administrative layer to the structure. That was said at a meeting here, that is why that cost would increase. You said it, I'll go back and find it. I asked about the increase, and you said it would be because of administrative. So,
But
you know,
there are
just say anything else like that. There is another approach. Our borough attorney has already said that the ordinance will have a lease attached to it. Our BA shared a lease agreement from a former municipality. I still don't understand why we can't have a very simple ordinance and then everything comes through with a resolution or a lease. We do it on other things. In order to avoid incurring fees in the future to amend an ordinance, that it has been shared with me that other municipalities do things like deal with it that way. Do the ordinance and then have these. Again, this is a savings to our taxpayers. Where we have arrived at this municipality is driving me crazy. Communication is non-existent in many areas these days, with folks that should be included being ignored. Why haven't there been conversations with the community garden? They've requested dialogue. Everybody's looking for the easiest way to dot the i's and cross the t's. I've been saddened by the attacks on the garden club through these months, beginning in April when this started by different members of our community. I'm embarrassed for this council that priorities have been selected that have had us spending the amount of time that we have on this these past 7 months, on crafting what feels like a micromanagement document for an already established community garden that runs efficiently, while we sit here and we ignore our seniors and housing and things at Bethany Manor. I am curious if anyone else did any work to uncover any of the original conversations, intent, etc. from March 2016. I personally took the time to reach out to some of the council members that sat right here when this garden was established via resolution. Some of the feedback I got, the community garden was a victory for the community. Plots were to be allotted to residents to grow vegetables. As time went on, many of the vegetables were donated to the food pantry, a Scavenger's Eagle badge. I recall the Keyport Garden Club hosting and managing the community gardens. I believe we've even passed an ordinance to enable the arrangement. Honestly, we all know now that that never happened. The resolution was done in March, and for the entire balance of that year, the BA at the time never followed through and did the additional paperwork that was stipulated in that resolution. The Elizabeth Street Community Garden, with its organic practices, community involvement, food pantry donations, and multiple Eagle Scout projects, has been an ongoing source of points for sustainable New Jersey as well, allowing the Green Team to maintain a strong bronze status for years. The borough has been the recipient of grant money from Sustainable Jersey. Do you know that we have new residents in Keyport that said this garden was a factor in selecting our borough? Councilmember Vecchio, recently during the workshop meeting on rent control, you once again voiced your concern about considering policies that will cost the borough more to implement than it would bring in financially. This version of this ordinance would do just that. You have advocated for the garden club on fees before and spoken of the good this group does in our community. At the April 18th council meeting, every sitting council member was on board with changing the arrangement for the yoga and Tai Chi at the waterfront. The borough staff no longer needs to spend weeks recording subscribers, issuing cards, and fielding information calls. An arrangement with the yoga provider was provided to allow them to use the site. I don't understand why we can't do the same with this. Why are we going to have all of this process come to the borough? Why not continue to let the garden club do it? I again ask my peers on the dais to consider a much simpler ordinance that puts a lease in place and allows the Keyport Garden Club to continue to implement the rules and regulations for use of this space as directed by the borough at the long-standing $25 per plot, which is in line with other communities. This multi-month process has left Elizabeth Street Community Garden funds that were designated for necessary gate repair in limbo and has limited subscribers' access to the garden because of that gate. Why would this council make a decision to add an additional property to the small DPW crew workload? As it is, the borough contracts out a large amount of landscape work. Taking on the Elizabeth Street Garden could entail things like having wood chips spreading done, fence repairs, gate installation, maintenance, just to name a few. Is the borough looking to add on things like getting quotes? All this work that has been done by the volunteers of this group, this seems like a situation that would incur even more costs than the administrative layer I already mentioned. These costs would impact all of our taxpayers. The Keyport Garden Club keeps an annual statement of the funds received and expended, which can be shared with the borough. I ask that this ordinance be tabled for further thought and collaboration.
Open to the public still.
It's still, we never closed it.
Yeah, I know. George Wallen, 54 2nd Street. Is there a disclaimer on the bottom of all that or no? I'm sorry. The meeting that you guys had, I keep hearing she, her, them. Who was the meeting with?
It was with the DEP personnel assigned to the.
Did we get a business card? Did we have her?
Yes, yeah, it's her,
Okay,
yeah,
did
yeah.
anybody take minutes of this meeting, being that they were going to
You
send us
actually took notes
violations?
on that. I did, yes.
Okay, so they can be over.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Do we have a motion to close to the public?
Mike
You
Lane
have
is
a
raising
hand
his
up.
hand.
Lane, oh, sorry, I didn't see Mike was behind JoJo's head.
You're not saying you got a big head. I took it as that. I know.
Mike Lane, 51 First Street, Keyport. The council scheduled a public hearing on this ordinance. If it was a given, we're not gonna pay any attention to the input, why do we even have a public hearing?
We didn't say that we're not paying attention to the input.
Well, I would feel that you did pay attention to input if you tabled this ordinance. And what is the time critical issue? We're not gonna plant any more tomatoes this year. That we can't work on this between now and the end of the year. We've been operating for multiple years, as you've heard. Table it and work it out. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion.
Oh, wait, excuse me, I'm sorry.
There's someone else.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tim Sharp, 33 Percy Place. I'm gonna have it on my mic, so, you know, see Mike, I'll be up next. Anyway, just for my own edification, I'm not exactly clear on the goal of the ordinance. So with that, let me just ask a question rather than explain everything. Is it possible just to will it meet the goal and allow our esteemed lawyer to have no heartburn? If you pass it without like the section, 9.5, 9.4, 9.5, like do you need all of that, do you need it that granular? Or could that be in the use agreement? Not just those details be worked out in the lease agreement. It seems to me like if you can eliminate that, and that, meets your goal of having an ordinance that allows you to sleep at night, maybe that would take care of the issues here. So thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to close to the public?
Motion. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, does the council want to table this? What is the
I
council?
make a motion to table.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Roll call. Michelle?
Councilmember Demarest.
I agreed to the ordinance for the property to be leased or whatever you're talking about that part. But as far as the property for the compound and for the fee, I like to table that. Compound and the fee.
We have to table
So
the whole thing.
I'll table the whole thing then, I'll table the whole thing. How about that? Don't clap for
Yeah, since my name was brought up before.
Sure.
I just wanted to say, I do agree that they shouldn't have to pay fees because they're a volunteer organization for Keyport. And I don't believe that the ordinance stipulated that, but if it ever came before us, it would be something I would be against, because I've said that all along since I've been up here.
Right.
We've been talking about this since May. This is not the first time it's been brought up, so that's where my anger comes in. Because I do wanna get to other things. I don't wanna be talking about something from May, so that's where my frustration is. If we wanna change the fee, I'm for changing the fee. Obviously, it's gonna get tabled because we're already at 3, and that's just my piece. I believe there is a happy medium. I believe that we can all work together on this, but this is not the first time this has come up. It was told to us it was gonna be on an agenda in May, and now it's October. And again, I know you guys do great work, and I wanna see you guys continue to do the great work, and hopefully it all works out. And I agree to table it.
Councilmember Pepperoni?
Table.
Councilmember McNamara?
Table.
And Council President Davidson?
Table, yes.
Yes, the ordinance is tabled.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for your input. Okay, ordinance 2023-15, amending the cannabis business license and regulation. Michelle, will you read the ordinance by title?
This is an ordinance amending Chapter 5, General Licensing and Business Regulations, and Chapter 25, Zoning of the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Keyport with regard to the licensure and regulations of cannabis businesses.
Thank you. Do you have a motion to open to the public?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Anybody from the public?
I'm not waiting for this.
Oh, I didn't even see you then.
Oh, I snuck in. Matthew Good, 82 3rd Street. So here's my question. I saw we're reducing the number of licenses that are being allowed to be handed out in the borough. So I looked up our taxes from last year to year. We were the 20th highest increased municipality in the state. There are 3 retail cannabis businesses in the county: Eatontown, Neptune, and Freehold Borough. Eatontown, I hear, is bringing in about $1 million a month in taxes directly to the municipality.
What, how large is Eatontown compared to Keyport?
Well, I will also say that you got one in basically the area, so people are coming in around town. But $1 million in taxes, that's not people from Eatontown coming in, that's people purchasing the cannabis at the retail. So that's just taxes that people are paying to buy. Freehold opened up end of June. They're already on target for $250,000 of taxes that are just directly paid directly to the borough there. So I don't know about Neptune, but considering that the taxes, our taxes are going up, why are we seeking to limit the number of licenses that we're willing to give out when all of this money could be going to not only just keeping our taxes stable, but reducing the number?
So for 1.4 square miles, we want 12 licenses in this town?
You know, I
Do
can see
we
you're
want to
actually
be
getting
named as the cannabis capital of New Jersey?
Champion of cannabis.
Well, I think like
I mean-
70% of the populace voted in favor of it, so I don't know, but are you giving out all 12?
No,
the
that's
problem.
why if we limit to what we have right now, we can always add down the road. We have so much litigation that we're going through right now.
I'm not even gonna get into the
Right.
litigation issue, but relatively straightforward where you have businesses that are looking to come into areas. We're one of the few boroughs that I think actually allows it in the county. There is quite a demand. The taxes will be very helpful to everybody who is stuck paying our increased taxes.
Sure, so for 12 licenses, in a 1.4 square mile town, at every corner, we're gonna have a cannabis.
No, the other
Considering-
licenses were not for retail.
You got
There
two
were only
retail.
2 for retail.
Right,
And
but
the
we
rest
also have
of them are-
manufacturing, wholesaling, so where's it
Not
gonna
on
be?
every
And,
corner.
and Mayor,
I'm just, what I'm trying to say is, we're 1.4 square mile. We're one borough that decided to take 2 licenses at this time. I mean, we've had many, many conversations about this, including with our chief of police.
yes, because I remember since I was the one that drafted the ordinance, so. But also, you have the manufacturing zoned up in the industrial area. So not on every corner could we even have these cannabis businesses. But I'm talking, but the retail, fine, get two, but we're not even considering something that people aren't gonna even see. The taxes are coming in.
Possibly, I mean, and this is gonna be adopted tonight or not. I mean, we workshopped this, we've had conversation, whether you're gonna,
I don't care about the workshop.
I
This
know,
is
but
the
we
public
actually did
session.
workshop it with the council, so.
That's great, I'm talking about a public session, so this is when people come in. I'm not, whether or not you workshop it, that's my question. You're gonna decide what you're gonna decide. But my issue is, this seems to be like it would be helpful to all of the public in terms of getting tax money that's going to come in that aren't just increasing the municipal taxes. That's my piece.
Thank you. Anybody else? Donna?
Donna Purcell, 396 Maple Place. I just kind of want to, I think that, yeah, a lot of the public said they were all in favor of it, but if I can recall, I think it was also indicated they didn't want a whole, like how many I have to agree with Mayor. How many are you going to allow, right? A lot of people said, yeah, bring it in, because we all know we can use that tax money. But in reality, people are already complaining about the smell. So you start having 6 or 7 retails opening up downtown here.
We were only allowed 2 retailers.
Okay, so
Delivery, distributor,
So what are you
wholesaler, manufacturer, and
Everything.
cultivator.
They're only allowing 2, period, not
So
2
we're only
of
allowing
each.
2 at this time.
No manufacturing, as long as you have 2, that's what I'm saying.
Well, I
We still don't know where we're at with litigation.
I was gonna say, I think because of the litigation, that's what's starting to scare me, is that every time you turn around is the next group, if it's manufacturing, then you're gonna have 3 other. The next thing you know, we're in more litigation, nobody's opening the door, and we're not reaping any of the benefits. Let's open the door for the 1 or 2 we have, start getting the money, and then at least we'll have money to fight the litigation. This is an amendment, an ordinance that I would approve amending later. Just do it now. The other one, I was against, yeah, so, just my opinion. Yeah, exactly.
I just want to get, do I understand, Jennifer Henning, 102 Main Street, sorry. Do I understand this correctly, you're limiting the licenses to 2 of any type?
No. The initial ordinance called for 2 of each class.
Up to 2.
Cultivator,
Up to 2.
manufacturer,
Mhm,
wholesaler, distributor, retailer, and delivery.
Right.
So right now, we approved 2 already, which
Two
we have 1 in
retailers.
town, we have 1 on the
Right.
highway. So we're under a lot of litigation, I think right now,
understand
we're
all that.
almost 50,000 into litigation, right, am I correct? Yeah. More probably now. We haven't even resolved the litigation for these 2. So if we change it to just 2 right now, which is the retailers, if we keep just the 2, going forward, if we see the tax money coming in, we could always change that and add another license into there. So if we just limit it right now to the 2, 1 in town, 1 on the highway, then we decide if we wanted to go out again. Because you're gonna have you're gonna have additional people come in that are gonna want distribution, manufacturing, cultivator, whatever. When they
We're
come
not
in.
limiting those, however.
Right, so if we could keep the 2 at this time, and then going forward, we could change the ordinance down the road that says, hey, now we wanna open up something else, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's distributing, cultivator, whatever, then we can always add on to it. But understand, you're gonna probably still go through same litigation that we've had with other.
Other growers are not going through litigation.
Have they?
Yes,
Yes, they do.
typically,
Yes, most are.
most are.
Yeah.
And what's the litigation, and truly, we need education on this, what is the litigation about for the 2 in our borough?
So what happens is when they issue these licenses, the state gave the power to these municipalities to decide how to do it. So they act as like the licensing agency to give that first okay and check before they go off to the state to get their approval. So they received applications for these different class of licenses. They were reviewed, and then the council ultimately selected one. The other people who didn't get selected were upset, so they challenged it. So that's We have 2 licenses that were
I mean,
recommended
I'm
in
upset
Baltimore
that I
Town.
bid on a house, but there's gotta be more to it than that, but it.
But that
that's
is it. I mean, everyone can disagree, but that's what it is, and it happens like with any, I'll tell you, a lot of cases, bid protests, when there's this big project and everyone wants in on it, he's shaking his head.
Yeah.
Everyone
We
sues,
can.
because
Turf
why
fields.
not? If there's a mistake made in that award of the contract, you might benefit, am I right?
Yeah.
It's the same principle. Every time a governmental agency acts in this way, the
So
second or
that
third lowest bidder
The
might challenge it.
decision to limit the number is just to avoid being sued by unhappy people.
It's a, right now, it's an attempt from, the direction given here was to place this, kind of keep the borough where they are, stop the bleeding. One of the first conversations I had with the CFO, very early on, probably before I even submitted my first, it was when I submitted my first bill, was that the legal budget is very much, in jeopardy, that we're not gonna make it to the end of the year, partly because I just got this tremendous bill from the person who's doing the litigation related to cannabis. So I don't know how we're gonna get through the rest of this year.
Well, once you get one of those open.
But right now, but that's not, but this is municipal government,
I
it's
get it,
subject
I
to
get it.
certain
Yeah,
budget
I'm not-
rules,
I'm
whatever.
not-
It's okay. One of the things we added in here to, as like a safeguard going forward, is language that will allow the borough to seek indemnification defense costs from the successful applicant in the future. Which commonly happens now in this, I'll give you the example in the bid protest situation, when a governmental entity is sued because they awarded a contract and the person who's upset about it sues them, so comes in the successful contractor, and usually one of those people takes the lead in litigation and the other person's like a me too. That's the kind of philosophy also I think this town needs to adopt, and that indemnification language I hope will encourage that, because again, the municipality is bearing the cost of a startup businesses, 2 of them right now, and they're getting nothing in return. It's just money out. And that's why we're trying to, the direction behind here is like, kind of stop
Do
it
you
for
see
one.
the light at the end of the tunnel for any?
I
other
can't
abuse?
predict the courts, whatever, I've stopped trying to do that a long time ago.
All right.
They just keep making adjournments and delays and.
Mike?
Mike Lane, 51 First Street, Keyport. Regarding the initial 2 retail licenses, I think that's a good starting point, just to see whether we can generate some money. But the ordinance in itself, a couple things. The documentation is for 25/1, and that's not what our land use regulations are. Our land use regulations is 25:1 dash, so it's wrong in multiple places. Secondly, we talked about modifying chapter 25. I was at the planning board meeting when the highway developer who has been allocated one of the 2 cannabis licenses came in to get his project developed. And our borough engineer, the planning board engineer didn't have a clue that there were site requirements for cannabis. And I can't, I have sympathy for him. When I got on the planning board, believe it or not, in 1989, John? Yeah. You got this book, Land Use Requirements, and all throughout the book were the newspaper clippings of the ordinances. And when we rewrote the ordinances and created chapter 25:1, we worked very hard to make sure that these development standards were self-contained. And we created development standards for marinas, for mixed use, and for the water plant. And they're all incorporated into chapter 25. And so the planning board professionals go to one document. And I look at this ordinance and I don't have a clue as to whether we're going to create that chapter in the ordinance and what's going to be in it. Because I see 25/1 15-20, which it should be 25:1-15.20, and there's no information. So that's not at all like 15-10 with the tobacco ordinance, or the one on bed and breakfasts, or wells, or marinas, etc. And so where is this document going to be created? And I look at the cannabis ordinances, and I just shake my head. I had to study this intensely to be able to go to the planning board meeting and give the input that this developer hadn't dealt with the need for cameras, for security, for gating, etc. And so where is that document?
I did that on purpose, Mike. Keeps the attorneys in jobs.
And
Leslie thanks you for that.
And so I ask you to make sure that you understand that in chapter 25:1 are land use requirements, the section 15-.20, what that document is, that you know what it is, that you understand it. Secondly, I've seen and been able to participate in multiple hearings on liquor licenses. And liquor licenses, there's a borough council requirement to manage the liquor licenses.
But that doesn't have anything right now to do with the public hearing that we have.
I'm going to draw a parallel.
Okay.
That there should be the same situation for the cannabis operation. Because if you look at the liquor license, it has to be a certain distance from a church door. That's in the liquor license. That's not in the zoning ordinance. And so there's a whole set of conditions for cannabis operation that don't have anything to do with zoning, but they have to do with managing the cannabis business. And I don't see where you've crafted that. You've got a huge gap. And so the planning board can't function on its own. Members of the planning board don't have a clue. There wasn't a member of the planning board who could make any statement about the requirements for a cannabis business at a site in this town.
Thank you, Mike. Anybody else? Danny?
Dennis Fotopoulos, 77 Beer Street, Keyport. Okay, the mayor, who should I ask about the new costs to the cannabis licensees?
Nikki, you could speak to any of us on that.
So I guess I'll ask it generally. So the $7,000 that was the $5,000, sorry, for the distributor. And I want to make sure that we understand that when this ordinance was adopted, we didn't. I get we're going to have a 12, cannabis.
You could, potentially.
You can't, because there's zoning standards baked into the ordinance, and there's also footage standards baked into the ordinance. So I wish we didn't do the two, but taking out taking out the possibility of putting in a cultivator really eliminated the lowest hanging fruit for us, for the borough, as far as tax revenue is concerned. We have a spot that's tailor-made for this, and we also have, and it's a wet, you know, it's not close to residential. We also, at some point, had, my understanding is we had a company that was interested in doing it, but was waiting for this, and now they're out. Which is, you know, it's a shame, it is what it is, but if this is, if the intent is to generate more revenue for the borough, especially given the tax increases that we've experienced over the last year or two, why limit that? Why say 2? Why not say 3? This way we can enable a cultivator to come in and generate the high-end type of revenue that we're going to be able, that we would glean from that. The cultivator is actually one of the concerns I always had was the safety of the facility, and I know that Chief had the same concern, right? So the security language that's baked into this ordinance, I like that, okay? But a cultivator is one of the safest facilities to have within a municipality, okay? For a number of reasons. It's sealed, it's not, you know, the employees are, the security at those facilities are at a much higher level than they ever would be at a local distributor, at a dispensary, okay? So that should be a concern. I know this is something that doesn't have the kind of momentum or the kind of push that the Elizabeth Street Garden did, but in a situation where we are not considering, that's not fair. In a situation where I haven't heard of any other initiatives to generate revenue in the town from this council, why would we limit ourselves to just 2 facilities when in fact 3, right, would open the door for a grow facility, a grow facility in town?
Right now, we have 2. So if the council chooses to adopt this tonight, we're gonna continue with the 2.
And
Eventually, down the road, you could add something on there.
Sure.
Why is it that we need to add something? No, we don't. You can always add onto the ordinance.
Forgive me.
Always amend it.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. I understand. That's
You know that.
yeah. The cannabis committee. I apologize. I don't know who's on the cannabis committee right now. Who are the council members on?
Myself and Councilmember Riley, she's not here.
Councilmember Riley. Councilmember McNamara, did the cannabis committee have input into the language, the new language in this ordinance?
Not as a committee, no.
Was the cannabis committee consulted as a committee?
No.
Why?
We discussed it at a workshop.
Yeah, I know, but
So-
the chairman of the committee answer it.
Right, exactly. But to tell you the truth, we've had conversations, myself and Councilwoman McNamara, we did speak about, you know, we had people approaching us, we weren't even out of the litigation that we're still in. It's continuing, it's not stopping.
yeah, I know.
So, I mean, we've gotta get out of that litigation. Let's do the 2. If we feel that we wanna add something else on there, once we start profiting some income into the borough, then that's what we can do, you know?
Sure, I get it. By the way, litigation is not uncommon
I
in,
understand that.
let me finish. In situations where a new cannabis law is introduced into a state. Colorado had the same issue, right? And now we're seeing property values on properties that surround downtown cannabis facilities, like the one that's gonna be in the bank over here. Property values are actually increasing, right? Which feeds the ADP, which is a whole other issue, anyway. So I would encourage the council to add one more, knowing full well, eyes wide open, that's not gonna happen. But I think that the opportunity to be able to bring in a grow facility will glean a lot more tax revenue, and when it happens, the litigation that we're experiencing now will be just a figment in the past.
We're hoping. Thank you. Anybody else, Alma?
Elmer J. Graham Jr., 22 St. Peter's Place. I just want to make it simple on this kind of cannabis issue here. Y'all are handling it just right. I mean, it's not a perfect solution, but you know, y'all are handling this just right. You're concerned about the possible litigation, you know, facing the borough and stuff like that. And if God forbid we lose that litigation, that affects us as taxpayers. So you're handling it just right as far as the cannabis issue goes. Thank you.
Thank you. John?
John Marilla, 34 Broad Street. I was at that planning board meeting also that Mr. Lane spoke about. And the reason why the meeting, the applicant spoke that night, and he was cut off more than once at every time he brought up saying the attorney representing the applicant, he was cut off and said, you know, you're not here for cannabis approval. You're here for a building approval. And Laura, you were there, so you know what was said at that meeting. And it was more than once that, you know, it wasn't gonna prejudge that approval to be automatically his building approved for cannabis. It was approved for something totally different. He went for a building variances, and they approved it. But the engineer and the attorney made it crystal clear from the planning board that this is not approving your cannabis license.
Correct.
Just so you're aware of that. So tonight, I think the council took the right direction, all right? So what happens, you had two public hearings. You had a public hearing on the Elizabeth Street Garden. The Garden Club presented a very productive, informative presentation. They gave you background going back to 2016, some people going back to 2008, okay? And it seems like their case was supported because it's been successful all those years. We don't know what to expect with cannabis, all right? Everybody might say, oh, wait till the doors open, wait till the smoke's blown in your face, wait till this, wait till that, bring them in, bring them in. Yeah, bring them more in, bring more out litigation attention. All I'm saying is, you got two approved right now, trial by error. See what happens after a year, critique it. Where do we go wrong, where do we go right? If we decide as a municipality to issue another license, whether you grow it, whether you sell it, whatever, do it. All I can tell you is the state of New Jersey put every municipality in a bad predicament because they weren't prepared for cannabis. And they threw it our laps. We're lucky we're only being sued by one or two applicants, and not all four of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mike?
Mike Lane again. On the cannabis ordinance. As John mentioned, the Wells Fargo Bank is potentially a cannabis site. Will the planning board have any role in that site? And what set of regulations will the planning board be operating on relative to that site? You talk about chapter 25, :1, land use requirements. Or is this just like the liquor license where it's a council issue?
Mr. Lane,
Yeah.
may I speak to that? So I don't believe that property is gonna have to come before planning board because there's nothing that's triggering them to have to come before us. The reason that the other property on the highway came before the planning board was strictly because they needed a variance, they needed approval for their new building because it is strictly what they needed. It had nothing to do with cannabis because there is nothing for the planning board to go off of because it hasn't been written yet. So now that, and this was a problem from the beginning that Councilwoman McNamara and I discussed when this first started, was that it needed to be identified clearly, so planning board knew what to do and how to judge it. In that meeting, we couldn't do anything aside from judge it simply as a retail space on the highway. So now that if this goes forward tonight, we will now have the ability to identify what needs to be set forth within the land use for 25:1. And then the planning board will then be able to, going forward, if we have new applicants, be able to understand what is expected, what is needed, what's allowed, and what is not. So to answer your question, the one on the bank will not be coming before us unless something triggers them to.
Well, that's interesting, because if you look at the requirements are, the bank has to provide parking, and it's got to provide camera coverage on that parking. Who ensures all that takes place?
I believe that, if I'm not mistaken,
Pardon?
that's gonna fall under the borough. Right.
Oh, so just like the liquor license, the borough will review that?
Yes.
Okay. And the borough will review that there's enough security, maximum number of doors, that there's gating?
Yes, that's all part of the application
Right.
that they provided to us.
All right, so that will be, just like the liquor license, the council will do that?
Yes.
All right, thank you for that insight.
Thank you. We have a motion to close to the public.
I have a comment.
Yeah, motion to close to the public.
Hold on a second. Can I say something real quick?
Motion is closed already.
38 Main Street,
It's
John
closed
Collins.
already. You're
I
gonna
just
have
want
to
to
sit
ask
down.
about the
You're
sign.
gonna have to sit down. It's closed already.
I want to know about the siren once the story. I heard it go off. I got arrested for this one time, went to jail, beat the case. You remember? Yeah, for nothing. I had 3 cops coming to my house over this crap. Because I complained about a sign. I'm like, okay, I don't want to hear that thing. I'm going to complain to
If you have a complaint, call us at the
I'll call you, no, I'm saying it now so everybody knows. Okay?
Yeah,
I went to jail for this. Could have sued you. Okay? I didn't do it.
Give us a call if you have a complaint, especially.
No, I have a complaint. I just brought it up. They know what I'm here for. Believe me, everybody knows.
I just
And the
wanted
pot,
to-
forget about it. It'll blow your brains out. You eat a piece of that, you walk down the street, you'll get ran over by a car. I don't even understand it. It's ridiculous. Come on.
That's
You
enough.
don't know what you're doing now.
So I do
Get up.
think there's some merit in the ordinance. The planning board thing, as Councilmember Danson said, is something that she and I have battled since early on when we were on the subcommittee working on the ordinance. I think a pause on additional applications and licensing is something that unanimously we've all pretty much agreed on until we weather through the actual litigation. I don't necessarily know that, in my mind, that a pause on applications and licenses means eliminating the ability to have them from the ordinance. However, what I'm more concerned about, which was not discussed or brought up by anybody here tonight, is that a couple of hours ago it became apparent to me that I think we made a misstep when we were scheduling the public hearing for the amended cannabis ordinance. The first page of the ordinance goes through partly why we're doing this, and it says, whereas after reviewing the costs incurred by the borough in relation to the cannabis business license review process and the ongoing litigation that has ensued following the issuance of licenses by the borough, it has been determined to be in the public interest that the borough revise the license standards. So that's what we're here doing. Part 4 of section 5-17, the cannabis business license fees. No one has discussed this tonight. This increase, this would directly impact the 2 cannabis retailers that we issued letters of support to the New Jersey Cannabis Regulatory Commission. These businesses were deemed the best fit for the borough given the parameters and the process that was put in place. The significant annual increase from $5,000 a year to $25,000 a year in this section, to me, is in fact a penalty to the establishments that we awarded support to. They are not the ones who have engaged us in litigation. Their road to opening has been hampered, and what we're looking to do is increase their annual fees 500%. Did anyone think to notify these businesses about this? I can answer that because I called both of them this afternoon to see if they were aware of the public hearing tonight. Neither one was. The last minute heads up prohibited both of them from attending here tonight. I have brought up other issues with changes during the workshop meeting and other communication. Most falls off to the side. But one of the other things I want to say is I would like to acknowledge that John Merla and I have different approaches and viewpoints on many things discussed at these meetings, but he hit the nail on the head when at a recent meeting he questioned the prudence of amending the ordinance prior to the completion of the litigation. So just a reminder, there's an enormous amount of work that needs to happen with ordinances, whether they're new or amended. And to do all of this work to then potentially incur additional cost and revise it again just seems, again, a waste of taxpayer money. So I really have an issue that the people who this is primarily going to affect have no idea that this ordinance was out there. And I think it should be tabled until they can be notified properly to attend a meeting.
Is that what you're recommending?
I am.
Okay, does anybody else have that? Okay, do we have a motion to adopt the ordinance?
I have a motion to table it.
Second.
So you'll, you know,
There's no second.
There's no
There's
table.
a motion to adopt in the second.
I had a motion to table before that.
I
Was
know,
there
but
no
there was
second?
no
But there was no
There was no
second.
second. Mhm.
So do we have a motion to adopt the ordinance?
You have a motion, you have a second.
Second.
Roll call.
Roll call.
I'm sorry, there's,
Thank you.
can you please clarify who made the motion to adopt
Ron.
and who seconded?
Ron and,
I second.
Melissa.
Thank you. Councilmember Demarest.
Yes.
Councilmember Vecchio.
Yes, and I also want to state that those fees were talked about in the previous meeting.
Mhm.
So advising them the night of the meeting or the day before, you could have told them at the last meeting if that was something that you.
How is it my responsibility?
I-
It's not.
Wait, but this isn't an
You
argument.
just stated, you stated that you wanted to give them a heads up. If you truly wanted to give them a heads up, you would have done it after the last meeting.
Yes.
Did you see it go like this?
Councilmember Pepperoni.
Yes.